Hello and welcome back for another installment in our Courtroom Confidential Conversation series. For this episode, please join me in welcoming Scott Reisch from the wildly popular YouTube channel Crime Talk. Hello, my friend. How are you?
I am doing very well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. I'm doing very well. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I've been looking forward to this conversation because, like myself, I know that you are still a very much full-time working attorney with a full caseload and a law firm that you're running. I know there's other people on YouTube who are also working attorneys, but I know in particular that you are still in the weeds very much with your law practice. So I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
No problem. I appreciate you having me. And yes, it is a busy practice still, working on that. But sometimes we go dark because I'm in trial, and I just think I'll be able to do it all, but I can't.
No, there's a lot of juggling that you might be able to do with life, but when it's actually you who has to be in front of a camera or you that has to be in court, you really can't split yourself up like that.
You can't. You got to have your focus on one thing, and the client deserves the undivided attention.
Yeah. The other thing I was telling you before we started to record is what I love about your show too, is it always looks to me like you just got done with a client meeting. You have a few minutes to share with us your incredible insights on criminal law, and then you got another client coming in. So let's wrap this up real quick. So I appreciate you shaving off a few moments for us.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, the day usually starts in court and come back to the office. Frank helps me out considerably and try to find, time to do a show in between everything else that needs to get done. And sometimes on Tuesday, we'll do a live. I wish I could do it full time, but one of these days, perhaps.
Okay. Well, again, thank you to you. Thank you to Frank. Let's start out by talking. You have a lot of subscribers, a lot of fans, a lot of people have been watching you for a very long time. And I know that they appreciate all the hard work and insights that you share with them, but they may not know a lot about you. Could you just tell us a little bit about your background, kind of where you grew up, where you came from?
Sure. I'm just your everyday street lawyer, so to speak. Does criminal cases. We do some civil litigation as well. But if I were, went back to myself in even junior high or high school, and somebody said, "Hey, do you think you'd ever be an attorney someday?" The answer would have been no. I grew up in a very working class type of situation. My dad worked in a parts warehouse for Chrysler for 32 years. My mother was a secretary. There was no silver spoon in our mouth. We were lucky to have a spoon sometimes. And, we never starved or anything, but there weren't a whole lot of extras growing up. And in all reality, no one even discussed going to college. I remember people saying, "Oh, I never had a choice whether I was going to go to college. It was just a question of where." That was it. It was never really an option. And it wasn't until I actually got out of high school and I went to work for my uncle who lived in California. And I went out there after a summer of high school and he said, "Hey, you should come out here. I hear you don't know what you want to do." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not really sure what I want to do." And he was a pilot in the military, but the airlines weren't hiring. So he had this woodworking shop and he worked me to the bone that summer. I mean, I was covered in sawdust. My job was to go pick up the wood to make cabinets. I would then sweep up the sawdust and start all over again to sweep up more sawdust. I thought I was going to spend my summer in California at the beach. This is going to be great. And he worked me to the bone. And I literally, I remember sitting around, it was hot. I'm 17, 18 years old at the time. And I see a couple of guys there that were, working for my uncle, and they were just old and curmudgeon-y and bitter. And I thought to myself, is this what I want to be doing in the next 40 years? And I had a counselor who had applied for a scholarship to a local community college for me. And so I remember calling up this community college, said, "Hey, is it possible if I could still use that scholarship?" And they said, "Sure, come on down." And my uncle said, "Good choice, good choice." And but in the meantime, he also took me flying. So we would go fly down the coastline, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. So I said, man, I want to be a pilot. I want to be a pilot like him. He was a pilot in the Marine Corps. That's what I want to do. So I ultimately transferred to the University of Colorado, and I joined a program that the Marines had. So I was in the reserves and going to school, and I was in an officer program, and I was set to get commissioned, and then I hurt my shoulder, and I thought, oh my gosh, I was going to be a pilot in the Marine Corps. This is going to, my life is over. What's going to happen? This is everything I wanted to do. Anyway, I still had an obligation. I was enlisted in the Marine Corps, had that obligation, and I was like, well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Kind of took a year off after I graduated from college, and I'm like, plan B, maybe I'll go to law school. Because when I was in college, I was working in a law firm. I saw an ad on a board, now everything's on the internet, but there was a lounge in the college there that said, runner in a law firm, flexible hours. I'm like, what is that? I was back in the day when you had to go file documents at the courthouse before 5 a.m. Yeah. Or internet wasn't a real thing. Email was just starting. We're talking here late 80s, early 90s. So they had runners. And instead of paying the messenger service, they had runners that they hired in a law firm, and you would literally wait, and they'd say, run this package to this law firm and bring back another package from them. Okay. And in the meantime, these attorneys that I got to work for, apparently I was doing something right, because they kept tasking me with more and more stuff and more things. And it was personal stuff that they needed done and what have you. And so when, they knew that I wasn't going to go get commissioned in the military, they're like, well, what about law school? I'm like, okay, yeah, let that be great. And so I kept getting waitlisted. I was on a wait list at the University of Denver. And this made people like, oh my God, this guy's an idiot, right? He can't get into anywhere. Community college, waitlisted, right? And so I'm on the wait list. And the attorney that I work for, and he's older now, but I still see him occasionally. He's a great mentor. He said, this is ridiculous. We're going to take care of this. And we went to have lunch, my mentor, Lance, and a gentleman who was very big attorney in town. The name was, everyone knew it. Anyway, but he was so old, and this was, like I said, 30 plus years ago. He was probably in his 80s by then, but he had gone to the University of Denver Law School when it was down in lower downtown, where the baseball stadium is now, over a meat market. The University of Denver School started in downtown over a meat market and has since moved. Anyway, his family's been around forever. And his son was there, and he writes a letter to the dean saying Scott would make a great member to the bar community. And so just like that, a day later, I was accepted.
I love it. I love it.
I was joking. I got into the law school the old-fashioned way. I knew somebody.
Right.
I only knew somebody. I only knew somebody because I'd worked my butt off. And, they're like, hey, you're in. It's up to you. Good luck. But if I hadn't, developed that relationship, and I really truly believe, and they've told me that it was because I busted my butt. They're like, we never had anybody that worked as hard as you. You always showed up dressed appropriately. You were early. You didn't question it. You just did what you needed to do. I think a lot of it had to do with that military, aspect. It doesn't matter, just a mission accomplishment. Just get the job done and let me know back, mission accomplished, aye, aye, sir, kind of thing. And so I got into law school, and when I got done, I was really tired. I was, married. I had my son was born my last year of law school, and I was just exhausted. But I was still, there's whatever. But I realized I wanted to do litigation work. So I went to these people, and I said, they said I had a job, and they said, but if you really want to do litigation, you probably won't really see the inside of a courtroom for 5-6 years as a, young civil litigator. And I'm like, really? So I remember I called back, talked to the officer selection officer and said, "Hey, here's the deal. I've been to OCS. I was supposed to get commissioned. It didn't work out. I since went to law school. Uh, what's the chance of, being a judge advocate in the Marine Corps?" And they're like, "Come on down."
I love
And
that.
I had to go back to do officer candidate school all over again. And it's a lot easier when you're 18, 19 years old than when you're 23, 24 at the time. You have a son and your wife's pregnant with another child at the time. So
Are
there
you,
was a
are you
lot.
talking about putting you back through training?
I had to go back through the officer selection
Oh,
process.
wow.
In the Marine Corps, not that I want to get too
Yeah.
into the weeds, but in the Marine Corps, every officer is a line officer. So you're considered a combat arms officer,
Right.
unlike the other forces where if you're an attorney, you're a judge advocate. You don't go to the basic training schools. Uh,
Right.
you go to what they refer to as knife and fork school for 4 weeks, and they tell you how to use your uniform, and you're in. Uh, the Marine Corps, it's 12 weeks of, I describe it as survivor. We started off with 100 candidates, and we graduated, I think, 32 or 33,
Wow.
because you can quit at any time. It's literally like, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah.
Um, and then as a lawyer, then you still go to 6 months of what they call the basic school, which is 6 months of infantry officer school. For 6 months is like the basic course. And then you go off to your designated MOS. So then I went up to Newport, Rhode Island for a couple months to learn how to do military law and hopefully learn how to be a litigator. So
I love
that's
that. Even
a long
the
answer.
quote unquote pencil pushers in the Marine Corps are still lethal human beings, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yes, just to be the point. The old saying, every Marine a rifleman, every Marine Corps officer is a platoon commander. You could be prepared to go lead a infantry platoon at any time. So
I love this story, and I want to ask you a follow-up question, but I got to share this with you, that when you were talking about being in the wood shop and this idea of this kind of turning around and taking a look at everybody and saying, is this the future I want? And then looking for something else. You reminded me of something I haven't shared in years, but I had a very similar epiphany right out of high school. I was a plumber, and putting in new construction. So digging the holes, putting in pipes, soldering pipes, all of that kind of stuff. And I thought this was I'm right out of high school. I'm making great money. It's fun. I'm having a great time, and I'm thinking this is my future. And I will remember it clear as day as long as I live. A day that we had to dig a drainage ditch, and it had to be done that day. And my boss, who I thought was an old man, he was probably just in his 50s, but to me, he's this old guy, had to
yep.
actually get out of his truck and put on his bags and go in there and start digging and hauling dirt with us. And I remember taking a look at him and going, because to me, he was the flashy guy, right? He's the owner. He's driving around in the nice truck. I figure he's living the good life. To watch him have to get down into the dirt and the mud with us and start to dig again, I was like, boy, oh boy, I got to find something else. And I think it was within weeks that I went back to community college myself. So you've given me flashbacks of that whole thing.
I think everybody should work construction or
Yeah,
some sort of, the old, what do they say? You have to figure out what you don't want to do before you figure out what you want to do.
yeah,
And, good people, hardworking people. But I just realized, I was like, I just couldn't see myself doing this for the next 40 years. I'm
right.
18 years old thinking, this guy, he looks like he's 70, he's 50, he's broken, he's curmudgeon.
Right.
Man, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all got marital issues and alcohol problems and everything else. And they're just living that same life, the fully tanned skin and everything else. But yes, you're absolutely right. Salt of the earth, admirable people. But I think, like you, I took a look and I was like, I saw my future flash before me, and I'm like, oh boy, I better figure out another way to do this. You had mentioned when you were in law school that you had, it's always curious to me because I think sometimes people think of lawyers in one very particular way. But being a lawyer can mean many, many different things. There are people who never see the inside of a courtroom and are lawyers their entire career. There are people who, just are dealing with clients and contracts and everything else. And then there are people who are absolutely inside of a courtroom from nearly, sunrise to sunset. You said that you knew you wanted to be a litigator. What was it that attracted you, and why was it that you thought, you know what, if I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm the guy who's in the courtroom?
Probably two things. One, I can be a little competitive. Um, what are you going to do? Like, be jockeying to, no, that should have been a comma, no, a semicolon. I mean, how do you win that?
Right.
Right. Um, so I worked in a law firm. They did some corporate stuff. They did some litigation stuff, but the litigation stuff just seemed, to watching these attorneys, it was just, it was a combination of intellect, digging for skills. I mean, you were a prosecutor, you did this stuff. Most cases don't come down to the law in the sense of like, oh my gosh, it's all going to be resolved one particular way. It comes down to who can find the best facts. And so I thought that was intriguing. And then I took a trial practice course in law school, and it was probably the best grade I ever got in law school. And I realized, I was like, this is fun. And I don't know if it was, kind of the military aspect of it, but some people just have an absolute fear of getting in front of people and speaking. And, these people, people's weaknesses come out over a period of time. They can be like, oh, they're the perfect student, they do this, but there's always something that everybody has that weakness at. And I remember there was a student that was, perfect in every way, but when they got to that trial practice course, couldn't, put out a single intelligent sentence at all. They just froze up. It was interesting. And I kind of thrived at it, and I just thought it was fun. And at that point I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, what do I have to do to get in a courtroom?
Yeah. No, it's definitely a skill set that you're right. The person who is in charge of law review and is getting all of the offers from big law thrown at them might not be the person you want actually arguing anything in a court, because it totally is a separate skill set. So you said that, finding it not as easy to kind of make a way for yourself immediately after law school, you reached out back to the military, and you became what's called a staff judge advocate. And I was hoping you could explain to us what that is, and how, what I love about it is how it's unique to, I believe, just the military, where you're kind of wearing two hats, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of, it's great experience, because so you get commissioned, and like I said, in my case, it was 6 months running through the swamps of Quantico, Virginia, in the the cold and the heat of the summer, and then you go off to Newport, Rhode Island, when it was just at the beginning of spring, and got to spend the summer there. It was amazing, and all these lawyers are there, and you learn the Uniform Code of Military Justice is really what it's all about. And then you got procedural law. So you could do, when you get to your base, it'd be like, all right, you're going to be a civil attorney, advising the admiral or colonel on what they should do on personnel issues, if that's what you want to do. You could be sent to the trial shop, where you could be a prosecutor for a period of time, and then literally flip. And when I was stationed down in Parris Island, South Carolina, which I absolutely fell in love with. I might add, that area. I have a house down there now, and I love it. I remember showing up, my friend, we had gone through the basic school together. We'd gone through Naval Justice School together, and we both got assigned to Parris Island, South Carolina. And the first thing that happened is we went and checked in, and the general said, we're short on series commanders. And so you have, the platoon show up of all the recruits. You have the drill instructors to train the recruits, and then you have series commanders that are in charge of, 6 platoons of recruits. And so, we're talking in the summertime, 300 Marines you're responsible to train. General says, we're short on series commanders. So although you guys are lawyers, great for you to be here, but go over to drill instructor school Monday for training. You're going to get the for the first 6 months. I was like, this isn't what No, it's
I,
time to be a lawyer now.
I was just getting my diploma hung up. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And so, the general told us that, and then we go over to the legal shop. And I remember we're checking with the colonel, and he's like, "All right, well, when you guys come back, we'll take care of you." And my friend George and I were there, and he goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" I was like, "Well, I want to be a prosecutor." And he looked at me and he says, Colonel Khan looked at me and says, "You're going to the defense shop then." I'm like, "What?" And George's like, "Well, I thought I wanted to be a defense attorney." He goes, "No, you're going to be a prosecutor."
Love it.
And it was great. It's great experience. Being a prosecutor, you have to learn how to build that house, right? The evidence and the facts, and then defense attorney, how to tear that house down. But it gives you both. It gives you great perspectives, being able to do both sides of it. You know how it is. It's great being on both sides of it.
Were you able to spend some time on the defense and then switch over to prosecution? Were you able to get both sides of that?
Yeah, I was a prosecutor for a brief period of time. Then they needed defense attorneys, and I was like, put my hand up, let's do it. And the reason I wanted to be a defense attorney was in the military, the defense side, although you're under their command, they can't tell you what to do. So it's like, oh, you need to be at PT at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's a little, doesn't really work for me. I'm more of an 8 o'clock PT kind of guy. So are you trying to pressure me into being there? You can't do that. I'm a defense counsel. So anyway, I went to the defense counsel and I had a blast. It was great. I had, two great bosses that just kind of threw you in and said, here you go. We only had a judge once a month down there for a week. And so literally it's like, all right, you've got, here's, 12 cases. 3 are set for, status, 3 are set for trial, trial. Like, I mean, I haven't done a real trial.
Right.
And they all said, you're going to sink or swim. Good luck.
Yeah.
They were there to help you, but here you are, literally your first day, no second chair. Okay, let's go do this thing. And that was their philosophy. You're either going to sink or swim, and litigation is either going to be for you or it's not. And everybody's going to realize really, really quick if it's not for you.
I love it. What kinds of cases are you handling? Are they criminal matters, or is it matters that are going to be handled within the military? I'm curious as to what is the jurisdiction?
Yeah. So the Uniform Code of Military Justice covers everyone who's on active duty, and it's all the same criminal offenses that we have in the civilian world, just in the military. There's a few more that are completely unique to it, like orders violations. The general says, don't go to this particular location, and you went there. That's not usually a big deal. They throw that stuff in all the time. When we were at Parris Island, we represented the commanding general had Parris Island and the Eastern Recruiting District. So anything east of the Mississippi, all the recruiters that were out there, they would get in trouble. And I don't want to make it sound like they were getting in a lot of trouble. They weren't. But we always had young Marine recruiters. They would go out to these high school and recruit, for people to enlist. Mm-hmm. And all those young girls just couldn't resist them dressing up in blue uniforms. Uh-huh. And the problem is they were usually underage. Mm-hmm. We had... And it could be anything, it's the same kind of stuff. Somebody steals the Marine Corps ball money. Okay. Guy needs, he's going to go to a general court martial, which would be a felony, or a special court martial, which would be equivalent of a misdemeanor. But then you also have to do the administrative proceedings. If they said, yeah, we're done with you. We think you're kind of a scumbag. And so we're going to pad this file to separate you administratively, and you're going to get an other than honorable discharge. So we also handle those types of things. But it was great because, one, you got a lot of experience, you got to dig into it, and they gave you a lot of leeway. And some of it you would think, I can't believe I just made that argument. But you learned really quick. One of the things they had to prove was jurisdiction. And I remember jumping up and saying, Your Honor, the government failed to prove jurisdiction. They failed to introduce the contract to show that my guy was on active duty so that they would have jurisdiction over him. And he kind of looks at me and I'm just sitting there, straight faced as possible. He's like, Captain Reisch, I do, however, see your client completely dressed out in his Marine Corps uniform. And I'm like, well, Your Honor, you can pick those things up anywhere. The point I was making was, Your Honor,
yeah,
they have to prove certain things. They rested their case. They didn't do it. And you can't let them reopen their case just because they're the government to fix it. They rested.
Funny. Yeah.
Didn't
fly with the judge though?
No, he let them reopen their case to introduce the contract. Of course. I mean, that happened even in the civilian world, but I was like, I'm supposed to win, Judge. It's the law.
Right.
And yes, he's here in uniform, but they have to prove it, and they didn't.
Yeah. Well, hold on, counsel. We got something else for you. So is it, if a person on active duty commits a DUI, that falls within the jurisdiction that you guys would handle, even though that's normally any other person, it would just be a state court thing?
Like all things in the law, it depends.
Gotcha.
The military could prosecute it, but they usually defer to the civilian authorities to do that.
Gotcha.
If it happened on base, then the military would prosecute it. Let's say a civilian, a family member, comes on the base and got a DUI or shoplifting from the post exchange, then the U.S. attorney would prosecute the civilians in that particular thing. I had friends that were sworn in as a SAUSA, a special assistant to the United States attorney, and they would handle the misdemeanor petty docket, where a federal magistrate judge would come down once every 2 or 3 months and handle all those type of civilian matters as well. So but yeah, it depends. It depends. We have a range of stuff from murder to, recruits died, got exhausted, usually some sort of training situation where somebody dies. The congressman wants to know why somebody's not being prosecuted. They prosecute it, abuse of recruits, he punched me, made me, and this was, a long time ago, but, back then it was just training, so to speak, but it still happened. Yeah.
I got one more question for you, because I could talk about this for a long time. I just find it fascinating. But when somebody goes to trial, is there a jury impaneled, and is it a jury of military personnel?
Yes. The interesting thing about the military court martials is that the person who is usually deciding that you go to a court martial is the same person that gets to pick the jury. So the general comes in and he'll have, it's one of those administrative things when they update it every 6 months. Like, these are the officers that will be on the court, that are my proposed jurors. And then there's just kind of a standing list. And they can change that as they need to. And if you're an enlisted person, you can request to have a certain percentage of the jury be enlisted, and they would do that as well. And they're a certain rank. And so the jury decides it. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be unanimous. It only has to be a 2/3 vote. And it's a lot different than in the civilian world, right? They go in and they get to talk about it and weigh your side, and then they decide. In the military, and we used to have this little chart, like, all right, you can have up to 12 members, but if you get, 2/3 is this, and you used to try to play the numbers, like, this is better to have this many jurors. And, but they talk about it, they discuss it, and then they take one vote, and it's either they get the 2/3 or they don't. And if it's not, it's automatic not guilty.
Oh, wow. So there's no sit back and deliberate further and try to take more time. It's just one shot at it. Interesting.
Discuss it till you're satisfied with it, so to speak, and then let's take the vote. And if it is what it is. And it's always interesting because this was a very small command at Parris Island. There weren't that many officers compared to the enlisted personnel. And you'd be like, oh, Major so-and-so, I see that you're on the staff with the general who convened this court martial. Do you believe you can go back to the general and say, yeah, we found him not guilty without feeling any reprisal or, culture? And of course, I was, oh, of course not. Of course not. And they would find our clients not guilty all the time. It was amazing. And we would have drill instructors, their careers were basically owned if they got accused of, I remember I had this jury once. I don't want to get too far off, but tell me when to stop if you don't
No,
think
I
it's
love it. Yeah.
We had a guy, and I don't remember the client's name, but he was a drill instructor. And he was in what they call the PCP platoon. It was called the physical conditioning platoon. So recruits, they show up, they're not in good enough shape to pass the PFT to do training. They work with them, get them into shape. And so the kids in this PCP platoon, and every now and then they would go through and ask the recruits, has anybody abused you? Has anyone, said anything mean to you? And one of the recruits said, yeah, my drill instructor called me a fat little pig. So they were going. So it started off, they were going to be administrative. And he's like, I'm not going to NJP. I want a court martial. So we get a court martial, and the jury finds him not guilty because there is a beautiful instruction in the military. It's called good military character. And it says that you have heard evidence from people who have said that the defendant exercises or has good military character. Good military character is in and of itself enough to raise reasonable doubt.
Oh, wow.
And what it goes back to is the old days where somebody was a great soldier, and let's say maybe he got court-martialed for something stupid or ridiculous or hitting an officer or something like that. But they said, I'd want that guy, that what they should have called it was, I want that guy my fighting hole instruction, because that's the guy you want there. And, cut him a break kind of thing. So wow. I want more trial, because the people that we represented were drill instructors, mostly recruiters, which these are the best of the Marines. I mean, they're water walkers, they're rule followers, they're the future Marines of America, and sometimes they mess up. And, you didn't just get the average Marine showing up there. They applied, they were selected, and, and they would have stuff where it was like, why are we ruining this guy's career? This is the kind of person we need in the military. And we want to kick him out for calling him a fat little pig. Like, and part of my defense was, he was.
I'd like to admit an exhibit of a photograph of the alleged victim. This is right out of A Few Good Men, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was a movie, but that was based upon a very. Obviously, they took liberties with, but I actually got to meet the guy that was the defense attorney that was based upon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he was
very cool.
I mean, this was 35 years ago, so he's probably passed. But yeah,
but it's that kind of world that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Okay. You do that for a while, but eventually you do start your own practice. Tell us about that. Where, I know you've now had your own firm, your own practice for over 25 years. Is that right? Closing in on it?
Yeah. January was 25th year starting private practice. So yeah, I did about 5 years on active duty, decided to get out. I was up for orders, and it was kind of a thing like, well, you can go to Okinawa for 1 year unaccompanied, or 3 years accompanied. And my wife had at the time had was a military brat, and she flip-flops. She's like, I'm not doing that to my kids. So we made the decision to get out, came back to Colorado. I literally had, I think, 60 days of leave pay coming. My father-in-law was like, what are you going to do? You got a wife and 2 kids. What are you going to do? I'm like, well, I'm going to send out some resumes. So I sent out some resumes, didn't get any bites. This is, late 99, 2000. wasn't a strong legal market, so to speak. And I had a couple of interviews, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, you have more trial experience than some of our senior attorneys here." I'm like, well, "You should hire me then, right?" Didn't I think they may have felt intimidated, but anyway, and that's just speculation on my part. They may have said this guy's an idiot. You know, he went to community college and got into law school the old-fashioned way. I didn't tell them that, but so I literally said, give me 30 days. I'm going to try to hang my own shingle, and if I can't make it in 30 days, I'll go get a job.
That's a short turnaround. 30 days ain't long.
It wasn't. It moved by that fast. So my wife took the kids. She went to stay with her parents in California at the time. I was staying with my parents at the time because I didn't have a house. But I didn't say. Did I say 30? I meant 60 days. I said, give me 60 days. And I literally rented a small office, and I remember it was $700 per month. And I'm thinking to myself, I just signed, I think it was like a 6-month lease for $700. Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to come up with this money? This guy's I'm going to lose my law license because I can't pay the bill. Oh my God. Yeah. And I remember I had a few $1,000s in savings that I had. I mean, literally had nothing. It's like, okay, I need a computer, a printer, and I need some advertising. And I put an ad on this like weekly magazine on the back page. It was like, attorney, reasonable fees,
right.
Representation, reasonable fees, call me. And, I was working for nothing. I was like, oh, you got a DUI? Oh, we'll help you out, whatever came in the door. And within 60 days, I was able to convince a bank to loan me money to buy a house. Told the wife, come back. I've got a house. We're going to give this a shot.
Wow.
And here I am 25 years later and still doing it.
Wow. Well, first of all, congratulations on the 25 years. Congratulations on surviving the 60 days that you gave yourself. That's pretty incredible. But yeah, tell us about your practice now. I know you do some criminal, but you also do some civil. Are you kind of a one-stop shop? You just kind of take what comes through the door?
No, most of I would say 90% of our work is still criminal defense work. And the other 10% is civil. I used to have an attorney that handled all of our civil work. A lot of it's some plaintiff work, civil litigation. I just don't love civil litigation. It drags on forever. Seems like the other side is always mean and nasty, and they have no reason to be.
Yeah.
I like dealing with prosecutors. Everybody knows, like, man, none of us created the facts that have all brought us here together. These are the facts. What's the offer up? And if we can't decide on what's a reasonable resolution, that's what juries are for. So let's go do that. So still doing about 90% criminal. And that's, still where it's fun. And it's fun when you go to trial. It's not so fun preparing for the trial, answering the same questions 40 times over. Do you think they're going to come with a better offer? Our trial.
Yeah.
50-50 at best, man. 50-50 at best. And that's probably, being optimistic. The government's supposed to win, right? They have all the facts on their case, all the laws in their favor. You've been arrested. If I had $1 for every time I was told, when are you going to file that motion to dismiss for lack of evidence?
Yeah.
No, eyewitnesses are going to come and testify. That is evidence, People just don't get that. So, when I first started out my practice, it was, once again, the Marine Corps connection. I remember I called up my law professor, and this is why, I think relationships are so important. I called up my law professor, who was my criminal law guy, and said, hey, I just got out of the military. I think I'm going to start a practice. I think I want to do criminal defense because that's what I really enjoyed when I was in the military. You're the head of the state public defender's office. Any suggestions how I can get cases or something? He goes, hey, we've got this organization called the Alternate Defense Council, where they approve attorneys that'll take a court-appointed case. And I was like, okay. I mean, paid nothing. I think back then it was like maybe like $55 an hour or something.
Wow.
But I was like, okay, I need the experience. Let's go. This is all new to me in the civilian world, so to speak. And within a week or two, I called the guy that was running it, who used to be a former Marine, and said, hey, we've got this case. It's a retrial. The other attorney's really busy. He needs another, person on it. Would you be willing to do that? So within 2 weeks, I'm, on this attempted murder case that's going to go to trial, no doubt. I'm like, yeah, this is great. And then they're like, hey, would you take this case? And then, I'm still doing private cases and what have you. And so I've just always tried to keep that mix of, private. We prefer private, court appointed, but now we only take like murders and really bad stuff. And then we also do private federal work and then the Criminal Justice Act panel attorney as well. So you got to keep that balance of private and, some court appointed work just to balance things out.
How was that transition from, you talked a little bit about when you were in the military, that they've got their own laws, they've got their own, it sounds like evidence code, everything else. Was there a little bit of kind of getting used to the way things work in state court?
No, it was a pretty smooth transition. And I, going to court is going to court.
Yeah.
Particularly in the criminal stuff, it varies. I've done cases all over the country and in the civilian world. And, sometimes I remember being in the Middle District of Pennsylvania and you come up to the bar, which is about 6 inches from the bench, and take the plea. In South Carolina, everybody sits at the table and nobody, stands up or it just varies.
Yeah.
So, but the same process is, before somebody can plead guilty. Do you understand your rights? Do you know the consequences? And are you doing this knowing and voluntarily? The paperwork may change nuances, but it takes a little while to pick up on it, but it helps. And I remember when I got out, I applied to the CJA panel, and they're like, well, how many trials have you done? And I was like, well, I got like 60 trials, like federal trials. Like, well, they were in the military, but they're federal.
Right.
The rules of evidence are the same. The procedures, pretty much the same. And so they're like, okay, you're on the panel. And I remember I'm like, I went to boot camp and they're like, how long have you been trying to get on this panel? Oh, I've been trying to get on it for years. It's pretty, exclusive club to do this kind of stuff. Like, really? Because I just applied and I've only been out about a year.
I love that. That's great.
It all works out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if all the transitions that you had gone through in your career and life weren't enough, what got into your head that you thought, you know what? I want to get on this thing called YouTube and start talking about criminal law and everything that you do now?
Well, I wish when my kids were younger and they were scrolling on stuff and on YouTube, if I had listened to them when they said this is going to be big someday, I would have got into it about 10 years earlier, I do believe. But I had a friend who said, hey, there's all these cases and there's this YouTube thing. And he started this little channel. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And he goes, you should start a channel, talk about, cases. I'm like, nobody wants to know what I have to say or think about. And it was the Chris Watts case where he killed his wife, Shanann, and killed the little girls. And, just up the road. And he goes, you should try it. And I was like, no, nobody wants to know what I have to say. Make a long story short, he pressured me and he said, you need to do this. So he goes, I got a video guy. He goes, all you have to do is record it and send it to him. I'm like, okay. And I look back at some of those. I think they're probably still up on our site. And I'm just like, my God, I can't believe how bad that was. But nobody knew. I didn't know how, it was just interesting. And so I remember we were going on vacation, and this is, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, however long we've had this channel. And it was a Chris Watts thing. And I remember it was like, is this the email that started it all or something? And I mean, I don't know how you experience this, but sometimes I think this is going to be a great show. I put all my work, all this heart and energy into it, and it just flops. And you're just like,
Right.
man,
Right.
that particular video that kind of started it, I spent maybe 15 minutes on it. I'm trying to get out the door. Like, well, how come you got all this stuff to do? You got to get home and pack, blah, blah, blah. And I sent it off to the video guy. He uploads it. And all of a sudden I'm in Mexico. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I keep getting all these subscriber notices on the phone. And all of a sudden it kept building like 50,000 views, 600,000. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, this could be something here. Like, wow, this is
Incredible.
amazing. And
Yeah.
I think originally my goal is like, well, I'll just be happy if I can get to 10,000 subscribers. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, if I could get to 50, that'd be pretty cool. And then it was like 100. And, as you know, it gets more difficult the higher you get to get more people. But that initial run was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
When did you look at it? Was it that moment when you're like, wow, people are interested in this? When you went from this will be fun, I'll give this a try, I'll send out a video here or there, to now like, okay, I actually need to set aside some time and attention to building this and cultivating this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the moment. It's like, wow, this could be really something. And I think because, and not to criticize, people in the press, they do their job, they do their best at it. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I assure you I'm not. But, you'd see something on the news and the news reporter didn't know the difference between, a pretrial conference and a preliminary hearing and arraignment. And so I was just like, hey, we need to be able to have this exchange where we can have a little more information as to what's going on and explain what's going on for the people that were interested in it. Because frankly, I had no idea, this true crime genre existed at the time. I was just making a couple of videos. It was kind of fun, everybody wanted to be a Casey Neistat, kind of guy at the time, right? Everyone's blogging and it just took off. I was like, wow. And then like, this could be serious. And, to this day, I still, if I had more time and I need to do it, the problem is I just need to, to build, I would love to have the Crime Talk empire here and, a network and, we're working on it. There's only so many hours in a day. That's the problem.
I want to talk to you about that because you are still running a very busy full-time practice on top of doing all of this. And how do you juggle all of that? But beyond just kind of posting some videos that you then send off to a guy and he uploads it, now you're in the world of live streaming where you've got people commenting and it's interactive and you're dealing with this live audience as you're doing it. I'm curious, was that something that you were interested in? Did you fall into that? Is it something that you've been comfortable with from the beginning, or did it take some getting used to?
I was actually quite nervous to do the live streaming and just throw it out there.
Yeah.
Because, you always try to, sometimes you're doing a video and you're like, God, that sounded terrible. I didn't mean to say that. I can't believe I twisted those words that poorly. And so you can, through the miracle of editing, God, Frank makes me sound good. I every now and then I'll go and listen to something. I'm like, wow, Frank made me sound really good on that one.
Right.
So I was worried in live stream, people are going to say, oh my God, this guy is a complete and total idiot. But what I found is that people really like the live streaming. They like the, just tell it the way it is. Kind of like you tell it to your clients, man, I'm telling you, this is the way it is. I always like it when somebody was like, you're pro Koberger or you're anti Koberger. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm just telling you the way it's playing out. And this is the way I see it. Just like if I was your attorney in life, I would have to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can't ignore the bad facts. You have to deal with them. And so I think that's, why some of our lives have been successful. I've often thought about doing it. If I could, I would hate to keep Frank here late every night, but just doing a nightly show, I would totally have a blast doing that.
It is funny. And I even admit I felt kind of this way, but when I still talk to family members about YouTube, people who are not actively on it and are participants in it, um, I think they think it's like, oh, you mean the place where you can find, funny cat videos, or is that, is that the place where people, do vlogging or something like that? And this idea that not only is it enormous and have all of these other niche communities involved in it, but that there's this whole idea of live streaming where you can just go out and be speaking to hundreds and thousands of people all at once who are participating with you is something that I think a lot of people don't understand. And that's why I always like to ask creators like yourself, yeah, it's one thing to be on YouTube, but now it's something else almost entirely when you're interacting with people. No?
It is. And, we do, obviously, we have the chats, but we have a call-in number. So
I
people
know.
can call in and say, hey, what's going on? We do it mostly on our Patreon, but sometimes we do it on our live Tuesday night live show as well. And it's just fun interacting with people that, they're really interested in this. It's like, it's not their job, but I mean, they could be a great attorney, great, police investigator, private investigator. I mean, I've had people send me stuff about cases, summaries, background. I mean, like, this is amazing. Like, you could go defend this case right now or go prosecute this case. They had it all laid out. And so it just amazes me when you get to talk with these people, how passionate people are about, the true crime genre, the cases, the people, the victims, the defendants. It's amazing. And you just to interact with them. I don't know if you've ever been to like a crime con.
Oh
Have you ever
yeah.
been
Yeah. I went for the first time this last year, and blown away by
in
it.
Nashville? Yeah, in Nashville,
In
right?
Nashville, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I went there too. I had a I went there and then had a court appearance in North Carolina. So when I left there, but people walk and I still gets weird to me when people are like, oh my God, Scott, like,
Yeah.
can we get a picture? And it's like, yes, but God, this makes me feel so not weird in a bad way, but like it's humbling
Yeah.
that people respect your opinion and you want to get it right. You want to, be respectful to all sides and be a professional about it. And, what I really love, and that's why I tell people I'm going to be in trial. We're going to go dark for a couple of days or a week or what have you. Because if we didn't put up a video more than a couple of days, people would call the office. Is Scott okay? I'm like, yes, that's okay. I'm okay. I was in trial. I'm sorry. Something got busy. Because we do try to put a video up every day. And it's the type of situation where I feel an obligation to put it up because people are expecting their video. People will be like, I cook dinner to Scott every night. I watch you every night. This is where I go for my information. So one, I want to get it right. Two, I want to make sure it's there in a timely manner. And I don't want to let anybody down that I didn't get a video up that day. I better have a pretty darn good reason for not getting a video up there that day because I don't want anybody to worry. I mean,
That's
some of these
incredible.
people are absolutely amazing.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful community of people is one of the things that has really been a wonderful surprise to me in this adventure is really caring, wonderful people who just happen to be enthusiastic about this one sort of subject. But I am not shocked at all that people miss you if you are not there routinely when they're expecting it.
Yeah.
That's a great segue to one of my last questions for you is you do have to step away sometimes. You do have clients that are heading to trial and need your time and attention. How has that been difficult? Do you struggle with that? Are you is this the way it's going to be for a while, or are you trying to transition? What's the latest for you?
Yeah. You know, like I said, if I could do this full time, I would do it in a heartbeat
Yeah.
and we'll be able to have the lifestyle to which I become accustomed, so to speak. I would do it in a heartbeat. I don't think I would miss the practice of law, but then I think that, and then, I mean, you're a litigator, you know how it is. You prepare, you're like, oh, I'm here on the weekends, I'm up late, I'm reviewing this, I can't sleep at night because of this case. And then you get to court and they're like, the judge says, bring in the jury. And it's like, if this is whatever somebody's drug is, like,
right.
this is mine. And it's like game on. I think that competitive thing comes into kit. And no matter how bad the facts are, the client wants his day in court. You've warned him, you've advised him. Sometimes there's no offer, so you're just going. And, you're going to make sure you zealously represent the client, defend their constitutional rights. So you're defending everybody's constitutional rights. And that's fun. I think I would, like I said, I don't think I'd miss it until I do it. And then it's like, oh my, I can't wait for the next trial. That was great. Yeah. And I don't know.
No, I believe me, you're speaking my language. The last trial I can remember, it was going to be a bear of a trial. It was going to be long. It was a very dense paper type case. And everything about it, I was just not looking forward to it. But you're absolutely right. The second it's go and the jury's there and it's time to start your arguments and examine witnesses and everything else, there really is nothing like it as far as that just being redlined with your energy and attention for, the 6 hours that you're in court, and then you kind of crash at the end of the day. It really is. There's really no experience similar to it. I mean, listen, there are police officers who risk their lives and firefighters and military people and everything else. But as far as being a lawyer, there's really not much like that.
Yeah. I mean, short of, being a, I don't know, fighter pilots or something, if they were out there actually jousting. Right. I mean, this is as close as you can get to, gladiator dueling or something, right? The king has sent in his people and it's you defending him. I mean, I don't want to sound ridiculous, but I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's like every side is fighting for it. And usually in my case, my client is going to spend the rest of their life in prison.
Yeah.
And if you don't do a good job, 5-7 years down the road, they're going to say you were a bad attorney. You should have done this. And you're going to do everything you can legally and ethically to zealously represent that client. And there's nothing like it. And even if the client knows that they're going to lose, for them to say, hey, thank you, I appreciate you. It's a great feeling. It really is.
Yeah. Have you ever been recognized in court? Has that ever come up that you have this very thriving kind of YouTube world outside of being a lawyer?
Yes. And the first time it really caught me off guard was I had this string of court clerks. There must be this like court clerk mafia or network that they all communicate. And I went through for a while and all these court clerks were coming in saying, I love your show. I love your podcast.
That's cool.
I'm like, oh, because in all honesty, I don't advertise it, if that makes it sound weird.
Sure.
I don't go on my personal Facebook page or whatever.
Like, hey, you're not announcing your appearance that way in court. You're saying that?
No. It's like, I don't brag about it. I don't broadcast it to anybody, but I won't deny it if it comes up. And, I've tried to live by, simple principle. And I've taught my children this, is that there's two types of people in the world, those that are humble and those that are about to be. And I believe that is so true. And as my mother, you'd always say, don't get too big for your britches, so to speak, your head. And, I see people throughout my career who have had it all. And I also realize how quickly it can all be taken away from them. And, whether my YouTube was going to last for a couple of shows or maybe a couple of decades, who knows? I'm just appreciating it for what it is right now. But, like I said, I don't go in there and say, oh, look, my new podcast. Like I said,
Right.
I don't even put it on my own personal Facebook page.
Right.
Because at first, frankly, I wouldn't say I was embarrassed, but I didn't know how other people would react to it,
Sure.
particularly your peers. And you're thinking, well, how are they going to look at me and judge me? So it was kind of something I just kind of did it. And now I'm at the point where I just, this is me, man. This is, you get it. And if you didn't have thick skin after about 30 days of putting up content on YouTube,
Yeah.
it's kind of like trial work, right? You're either going to be you're either going to thrive or you're out, because you're going to be like, I can't believe that they said that, like this guy's an idiot, and at first it was like, oh, really? Guy with 7 subscribers, now it's like, whatever.
Talk about being either humbled or about to be humbled. That'll do it for you real quick.
It will. You mispronounce that.
Scott, right. Yeah, right. Yeah, Lord forbid you mispronounce something. Last question I have for you. You're doing so many fun things with the channel, and it sounds like it's kind of evolved over time. One of the things I love that you do is taking the calls. I think that's a fabulous way to involve more people, and I it's really cool. Do you have other plans for the channel? Other things you want to try? Trials you're looking forward to covering more? What's in store for you?
Yeah. So the plan, and I'm trying to keep all my trials now to nothing but homicides that I actually have to go try. But now that Crime Talk 1 is back, we had some maintenance issues, but we're back. And I was just in Santa Fe this weekend. I got checked out. So I'm official jet pilot again. Current.
Also something we didn't spend enough time on, but you are, tell us a little bit about that real quick. You are a absolute badass pilot.
No, I am a very humble pilot, and still gets nervous when I have to go do my check rides with the FAA examiner. Courtroom. Oh, that is flying. Right. That's it. That's what I originally wanted to do when I was younger. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a military pilot. It didn't work out. So ultimately I learned to fly. My wife at the time said I needed a hobby. And I said, okay, fine. And if anybody's ever had any touch with aviation, you're either all in or you're like, not really yet. I'm just all in. I'm an aviation junkie, so to speak. I love anything aviation. I should probably spend more time watching other YouTube creators and things like that. But if I'm looking on YouTube, it's usually something aviation related. I know that sounds weird, but that's what I do. Yeah. Over the years, I've been fortunate. I've had, several planes, and I ultimately stepped up to a little citation. And, but we had some maintenance issues. We were down for 9 months, but now that it's back, my plan is obviously to go out for the Koberger trial, go down to the Lori Vallow trial. Would have been great when the Alex Baldwin trial was going on down in Santa Fe, because literally it's a 50-minute flight, 6 hours by car, 50 minutes by plane. That would have been great to be able to
be back home for dinner every night.
Exactly. To sleep in my own bed. That's the reason to have a plane, is to sleep in your own bed. And so, I'd like to go to more trials, go actually watch them, kind of be, live streaming. Here we are, we're at the trial, and, this is what the feel, how it is. Video, just, you can't capture what's going on in the courtroom entirely.
Yeah.
There's that sense of in the courtroom, like, ooh, that didn't go well. Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah. A feeling in the air that you really cannot replicate through a reporter telling you about it, or even a TV camera.
Yeah. Sometimes on video, it just doesn't, you don't get the sense of, oh, that was a major question or something.
Yeah.
But you can feel it, in the attorneys as well, the body language. I don't know if you watched the body language of the Koberger attorneys for the hearings the last couple of weeks. You can see the defense attorneys are getting a little more rejected as So plan is, sorry, I digress. Go do more trials. do more live streaming, whether it be in the evenings or, if I could fix where I would never have to go to court in the morning, I would do like a 9 to noon show every day.
That's awesome. That's
Have
awesome.
guests, have call in, and I think it'd be huge. And
I think so too.
we've got some other things going on with some other content. It's just trying to find the right person. Frank's been with me now for what, 4 years, Frank? 5 years. And we had Julie, she was with us for a while, just haven't been able to find that right fit. If I could find the right fit, I think, I just need somebody to, take care of all the stuff that I think about at the middle of the night, but I don't send that email out or something.
Well,
I'll do that
I look forward to everything you've got planned. I was hoping you were going to say you're going to start live streaming from the plane too. I look forward to that.
Well, I've thought about that because
I love it.
Unbeknownst to most, we have another channel. It's called bigaviation.com, and it's about aviation stuff. And there's a couple of episodes where I'm flying in there. But I bought a portable Starlink, and I believe
there you go. That's all you need.
That it will work. I've read about it. People have said it has worked, but some people said if it's too fast, it won't work. But I'm going to try it now. And I think we'd actually be able to live stream from Crime Talk 1 and talk about everything that's going on.
That's how you do it, is you fly down, watch the trial in court all day, and then on your flight back, you just give a recap of everything that took place that day, and you sleep in your own bed at night.
Yeah, it'd be perfect.
I love it.
A little more expensive than a hotel room, but yeah, that's what we're looking forward to. So yeah, the Crime Talk media empire, it's coming. 2025 is the year, I do believe so.
We are ready for it.
We'll be chasing you. All right,
Scott,
we're chasing you.
You are a gentleman. This was a fantastic, fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Before I let you go, we've talked about the YouTube channel. You've mentioned you've got a couple. Please tell us, where to go to find the channel. If people don't know about you already, do you have any kind of social media that you want people to know about? Give us all the ways we can get a hold of you.
Yeah, obviously you can go to YouTube. Just type in Crime Talk with Scott Reisch. It pops right up. We've got Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Rumble as well. So we're pretty much everywhere, and as well as the podcast. You can check it out on any of your favorite podcasting apps as well.
Fantastic. Thank you again, my friend. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Absolutely. We hope you enjoyed this interview. If there is someone you would like to hear from, a well-known creator, or perhaps someone you feel that gets overlooked, please let us know in the comments. And please check out our playlist of past conversations. We appreciate you all. Please remember to like this episode and subscribe for more content like this. And thank you again for joining us for this episode of Courtroom Confidential Conversations.